3 grueling years were spent swallowing black market suppressants, enduring chemical burns on sensitive scent glands, and living a total lie just to escape the alpha who once claimed ownership. A flawless disguise as a boring corporate beta held up, until the new boss, a billionaire CEO, pinned him against a mahogany desk and breathed in the truth. Every morning began with the same agonizing ritual. Before the sun even crested the Chicago skyline, I stood in front of my cramped bathroom mirror and stared at the needle. The vial of synthetic beta-mimetic hormones, code-named Inhibitor V, sat on the cold porcelain. Dr. Bennett, the underground physician who supplied it, had warned me of the risks: heart palpitations, chronic fatigue, and the slow, inevitable degradation of my nervous system. But to me, liver failure was a far better fate than going back to Harrison Cole. I injected the cloudy liquid into my thigh, gritting my teeth as the familiar, icy burn spread through my veins. Within minutes, the natural sweet scent of honey and rain that marked me as an omega vanished, replaced by the flat, sterile neutrality of a beta. I taped a specialized blocker patch over the faded, surgically scarred bite mark on my scent gland, the only physical proof that I was a mated omega on the run. My name was Liam Hayes. At least, that was the name on my forged birth certificate, my driver's license, and my employee badge at Croft Global Enterprise. For 2 years, I had successfully masqueraded as a mid-level financial analyst. I kept my head down, wore ill-fitting suits to hide my softer frame, and never lingered at office parties. My survival depended on being utterly invisible. In a corporate world dominated by aggressive, territorial alphas, a beta was just background noise. Earth to Liam, a hand waved in front of my face, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was Oliver, a genuine beta from the accounting department, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Sorry," I muttered, taking the cup. "Just going over the quarterly projections." "You need to stop staring at spreadsheets and look alive," Oliver whispered, leaning in close. "Have you heard the news? The old man is stepping down early. His son is taking over as CEO, starting today. Dominic Croft." A shiver of genuine dread ran down my spine. Dominic Croft wasn't just another corporate NAPO baby. He was a ruthless, self-made alpha who had spent the last decade building a rival tech empire in Europe before returning to inherit his family's real estate conglomerate. The financial blogs called him the apex predator of Wall Street. Rumor had it his pheromones were so potent they could force an opposing CEO into submission during negotiations. "They called an all-hands meeting in the main boardroom in 10 minutes, Oliver continued, oblivious to my rising panic. "Make sure your tie is straight. I heard he fired a VP in London just for breathing too loudly while he was speaking." I nodded numbly, touching my collar to ensure it completely covered my scent patch. "Just blend in," I told myself. "You are a beta. You have no scent. You are a ghost." The executive boardroom was a sprawling, glass-walled amphitheater overlooking the city. Dozens of analysts, managers, and executives filed in. The air was already thick with the heavy, peppery scents of anxious alpha executives trying to project confidence. The clash of their pheromones made my stomach churn, a suppressed omega instinct begging me to submit to the strongest presence in the room. I fought it down, taking a seat in the back corner, hiding behind a potted ficus. Then the heavy oak doors swung open. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. Dominic Croft walked in. He was a towering figure, dressed in a bespoke charcoal suit that clung to broad, rigid shoulders. His jawline looked like it had been carved from marble, and his eyes, a piercing, predatory ice blue, swept over the room. But it wasn't his appearance that stole the breath from my lungs. It was his scent. It was overwhelming. Bitter espresso, dark timber, and ozone. Like the terrifying calm right before a lightning strike, the sheer force of his alpha aura slammed into the room. Several junior alphas physically visibly slumped, instinctively lowering their chins in a display of submission. I dug my nails into my palms until they bled, desperately fighting the biological urge to bare my neck. "Hold it together, Liam. The suppressants are working. You are invisible." Dominic began to speak. His voice was a low, resonant baritone that commanded absolute authority. He paced the length of the massive conference table, outlining his aggressive restructuring plans. He demanded perfection. He demanded loyalty. As he spoke, he moved closer to my side of the room. I kept my eyes glued to my legal pad, aggressively pretending to take notes. Dominic paused. He was standing no more than 3 feet from my chair. The boardroom fell into a dead silence. I could see the polished leather of his Oxfords from the corner of my eye. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Slowly, deliberately, Dominic took a deep breath. I froze. Did the patch slip? Was the inhibitor V failing? Dominic's ice blue eyes slowly lowered, locking directly onto the top of my head. For 5 agonizing seconds, the apex predator stared down at the invisible beta. The air between us cracked with unspoken tension. I swore I could feel the heat radiating off his body. "You!" Dominic's voice sliced through the silence. I looked up, swallowing hard. Yes, Mr. Croft?" His eyes narrowed, dissecting my face, my cheap suit, my stiff posture. His nostrils flared just a fraction of an inch. "What is your name?" "Liam Hayes, sir. Junior analyst." A slow, chilling smirk tugged at the corner of Dominic's mouth. It was a smile completely devoid of warmth. "Liam, I want the finalized projections for the waterfront development project on my desk by tonight. Hand-delivered. Only by you." Before I could protest that I wasn't even the lead on that project, he turned on his heel and walked away. Oliver nudged me, his eyes wide. "Dude, what just happened?" I felt a cold bead of sweat roll down my spine. I didn't know what just happened. But as the boardroom emptied, I realized my hands were violently shaking. He had smelled something. I was sure of it. The panic didn't fully hit me until I was locked inside a bathroom stall on the 40th floor. I ripped open my briefcase, pulling out a small bottle of chemical neutralizer spray. I doused my neck and wrists, coughing at the harsh scent of bleach and rubbing alcohol. I pulled out my burner phone and dialed the only number in my contacts. "Dr. Bennett," I hissed the moment the line clicked open. "The suppressants, they're failing." "Calm down, Liam." The doctor's gravelly voice came through the receiver. "Inhibitor V doesn't just fail. Did you miss a dose?" "No, I took it this morning. But my new CEO, he's a prime alpha. The strongest I've ever been near." He stood next to me and stopped. "He reacted to me, Doctor. I need a stronger dose." "Absolutely not," Dr. Bennett snapped. "I told you, Liam, your biology is fighting back. You've been suppressing a bonded omega cycle for 3 years. If I up the dosage, your kidneys will shut down within the month. You need to leave that job. Run. Get out of Chicago." Run. It was all I knew how to do. The memory of why I was running crashed into me. Harrison Cole, heir to the coal shipping fortune. He had bought my family's debts when I was 19 and took me as collateral. I was nothing but a prized breeding mare to him. He was cruel, possessive, and violent. When he forcefully bit me to form a mate bond, I nearly died from the infection. I spent months planning my escape, faking a drowning accident during a yacht trip, and fleeing into the night with nothing but the clothes on my back. If Harrison found me, he wouldn't just lock me away. He would break every bone in my body to ensure I never took another step without his permission. "I can't run," I whispered into the phone, tears of sheer frustration burning my eyes. It took me 2 years to build this fake identity. If I vanish now, the company will investigate. It will leave a paper trail. I just have to survive tonight. I hung up, splashing cold water on my face. Hand delivered. Only by you. At 8 p.m., the office was a ghost town. The heavy rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows cast shifting, ominous shadows across the deserted trading floor. I clutched the blue project folder to my chest like a shield and made my way to the executive suite. The door to Dominic Croft's office was slightly ajar. I knocked lightly, pushing it open. The room was vast, dimly lit by a single desk lamp. Dominic was standing by the window, a glass of amber scotch in one hand, watching the storm roll over the city. He had discarded his suit jacket, his crisp white shirt rolled up at the sleeves, revealing thick, corded muscles in his forearms. The scent of espresso and ozone was intoxicating in the enclosed space. It was pulling at my Omega instincts, a dangerous, primal siren song, trying to lull my defenses to sleep. "The projections you asked for, Mr. Croft," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I placed the folder on the edge of his massive desk, intending to turn around and sprint to the elevators. "I didn't tell you to leave, Liam." His voice stopped me dead in my tracks. Dominic turned away from the window. The ambient light caught the predatory gleam in his eyes. He set his glass down and walked slowly toward me. Each step he took felt like a drumbeat echoing in my chest. "You've done an excellent job of blending in," Dominic said, his voice a low purr. He circled me, like a wolf assessing trapped prey. "Your employment history is immaculate. Your social media presence is practically non-existent. You wear cheap cologne, you speak in a flat register, and you mask your pulse rate beautifully." He stopped right behind me. He was so close I could feel the heat radiating off his chest. "But you made one fatal miscalculation," Dominic whispered, leaning down until his lips were inches from the nape of my neck. I gasped, freezing as a violent shudder racked my body. "Chemical suppressants only mask the scent of your pheromones," he murmured, taking a slow, deep inhale against my collar. "They don't mask the scent of your fear, and betas don't tremble like a cornered omega when an alpha enters the room." My blood ran cold. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a beta. My medical records are forged," Dominic interrupted, his hand suddenly shooting out. He grabbed my wrist, his grip like a steel vice, and slammed me backward. I crashed into the edge of the mahogany desk, knocking a stack of papers to the floor. Dominic crowded into my personal space, caging me in by planting both his hands on the desk on either side of my hips. "Let me go!" I choked out, struggling against him. But his alpha aura flared, a deliberate, crushing wave of dominance that paralyzed my limbs. My knees gave out, and I would have collapsed onto the floor if I wasn't pinned against the desk. The inhibitor V in my system was completely overwhelmed by his sheer proximity. A sweet, panicked scent of honey and rain leaked into the air, betraying me. "There you are," Dominic breathed, his eyes darkening to the color of a stormy sea as he caught my real scent. He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a sleek black smartphone, tossing it onto the desk beside me. The screen was lit up with an email attachment. My breath hitched as I stared at the photo. It was a picture of me, taken 3 years ago. I was standing next to Harrison Cole, my eyes bruised, wearing a diamond collar. "Harrison Cole is a rabid dog," Dominic said coldly, staring down at my horrified expression. "He's been quietly burning millions in the underworld, hunting down the mate that slipped through his fingers. It's a closely guarded secret in the upper echelon of Alpha Society, a massive embarrassment for the Cole family." "How?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "How did you know?" "Harrison and I are currently locked in a brutal bidding war for the very waterfront development you just handed me the projections for," Dominic stated, a cruel, calculating smile spreading across his lips. "I pride myself on knowing my enemy's weaknesses. I hired the best private military contractors in the world to find out what Harrison was hiding. They found out he lost his bonded Omega, but they couldn't find you. You hid very, very well." Dominic leaned in closer, his thumb reaching up to brush roughly over the patch hiding my scent gland. "Until you walked into my boardroom today, reeking of synthetic hormones and sheer terror." Tears finally spilled over my eyelashes. "Please," I begged, the fight completely draining out of me. "Please don't give me back to him. He'll kill me. He'll lock me in a basement until I rot. Please, Mr. Croft, I'll give you whatever you want. I'll transfer all my savings. Just let me disappear." Dominic let out a low, dark chuckle. It was a sound completely devoid of pity. "Give you back to him?" Dominic mused, his hand sliding to grip my jaw, tilting my face up so I was forced to look into his terrifying, beautiful eyes. Why on earth would I hand my rival his greatest prize when I can use you to completely destroy him? Dominic's thumb traced my bottom lip, his scent wrapping around me like a heavy, suffocating blanket. "You aren't disappearing, Liam. You're going to be the bait that lures Harrison Cole into my trap. You belong to me now. And I don't just mean running my spreadsheets." The ensuing days dissolved into a terrifying, gilded nightmare that felt entirely disconnected from reality. Dominic Croft did not throw me into a corporate dungeon, nor did he chain me to a desk in his headquarters. Instead, I found myself locked away inside a sprawling, multi-million-dollar penthouse suite at the summit of the St. Regis Hotel. Every exit, including the private elevator and the service stairwell, was heavily guarded by stone-faced, ex-military security contractors from Pinkerton. My life as a corporate ghost, the invisible junior analyst named Liam Hayes, was abruptly and violently extinguished. The cheap, ill-fitting polyester suits I had hidden behind for years were summarily burned by Dominic's staff. In their place, a wardrobe of meticulously tailored silk, cashmere, and linen appeared, garments specifically designed to accentuate the softer, omega curves I had spent so long desperately trying to conceal from the world. But the lavish, restrictive surroundings were absolutely nothing compared to the unmitigated agony of my chemical withdrawal. On my very first night in the penthouse, Dominic had ruthlessly confiscated my entire hidden stash of inhibitor V suppressants. "If you are going to be my bait, Liam," he had murmured softly, his voice completely devoid of any sympathy as he methodically emptied the fragile vials down the master bathroom's marble sink. "You have to actually bleed in the water. Harrison Cole is a paranoid monster. He will never take the bait unless he smells your true blood." The physical crash that immediately followed was a rapid descent into pure biological hell. Without the daily injection of synthetic hormones keeping my true nature suppressed, my body retaliated with a terrifying, uncontrollable vengeance. For 4 agonizing days, I burned with a systemic fever, thrashing helplessly in the cold silk sheets as my dormant scent glands violently reactivated. The suppressed, natural scent of sweet honey and fresh rain exploded out of my pores. It was so thick, so overwhelmingly sweet and desperate, that it made my own head spin in a dizzying haze. Every single nerve ending in my body felt like it was submerged in boiling water. Through the suffocating, delirious haze of my pain, Dominic was a constant, looming presence. He never crossed the line. He never touched me inappropriately, but his presence was a heavy, inescapable blanket over the room. He would sit for hours in a leather armchair beside the bed, calmly working on his laptop, actively allowing his intensely potent pheromones, the bitter, dark espresso and crackling ozone, to wash over my trembling frame. It was a calculated, masterful move, and it worked flawlessly. His aura soothed the most violent of my tremors. It brought forth a terrifying realization. My primal Omega instincts were already beginning to unravel, desperately craving the safety and anchoring power that his overpowering alpha presence so easily provided. My body was betraying my logic. "Drink this," Dominic commanded smoothly on the evening of the 4th day. He sat on the edge of the mattress, holding a crystal glass of electrolyte-infused water to my parched lips. I swallowed the liquid greedily, my hands shaking so violently that my fingers brushed against his large, warm knuckles. A jolt of pure electricity shot up my arm. "Why are you doing this?" I rasped, my throat raw and bleeding from days of feverish screaming. "Harrison will kill you just for having me in your possession. You don't know what he's capable of." Dominic offered a low, dark chuckle that vibrated deep within my chest. "Harrison Cole is nothing but a spoiled thug who inherited a decaying shipping empire. I built my fortune from the ground up, Liam, tearing apart men twice his size and 10 times his intellect. In exactly 48 hours, the Global Horizon Summit is being held at the Waldorf Astoria. The entire executive board of his company will be in attendance to finalize the waterfront acquisition. That, my dear Omega, is exactly where we spring the trap." He reached out slowly, his large thumb lightly, almost reverently, brushing against the angry, faded scar tissue on my neck, the remnant of Harrison's broken, infected claim mark. "But he will instantly smell that you are currently unmatched," Dominic murmured, his ice-blue eyes darkening to the color of a midnight storm. "An unclaimed Omega, smelling as sweet and desperate as you do right now, is a walking target for every aggressive alpha in that ballroom. It would cause a riot. We simply cannot have that." Before my exhausted brain could fully process the gravity of his words, Dominic leaned down. His lips brushed delicately against my frantic pulse point, sending a jolt of paralyzing electricity straight down my spine. Then he opened his mouth and bit down. It was nothing like the brutal, flesh-tearing violence of Harrison's bite. It was a firm, agonizingly precise, claiming bite. His sharp canines pierced my skin, injecting his alpha venom just deep enough to seamlessly mix with my rushing bloodstream. I arched violently off the pillows, a breathless, broken sob escaping my parted lips. The pain flared hot and blindingly sharp for a fraction of a second, but it was immediately chased by a rushing tidal wave of euphoric endorphins, so overwhelmingly powerful that my vision completely whited out. When I finally fluttered my eyes open, gasping for air, The entire room smelled fundamentally different. The frantic honey and rain of my scent were now wrapped tightly and securely in the dark, smoky, protective espresso of his aura. We were temporarily, undeniably bonded. "There," Dominic whispered, his eyes glowing with a feral, predatory satisfaction as he wiped a single drop of blood from my skin. "Now you smell exactly like you belong to me, and no one will dare look twice." The grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria was a suffocating sea of bespoke black-tie tuxedos, blinding crystal chandeliers, and the oppressive clashing scents of Wall Street's most vicious and territorial alphas. I stood rigidly by Dominic's side, wrapped in a breathtaking, custom-tailored emerald velvet suit that made me feel entirely exposed and vulnerable. Every single time an alpha executive stepped even a fraction too close, Dominic's massive hand would tighten possessively on the small of my back. His pheromones would immediately spike in a silent, lethal territorial warning that sent them scrambling away with lowered heads. I was absolutely terrified. My heart beat frantically against my ribs like a trapped hummingbird, but the temporary mating bond actively pulsing in the newly bruised flesh of my neck kept me completely anchored to Dominic's side. His presence was my shield. "Keep your breathing steady, Liam," Dominic murmured discreetly, taking a slow sip from a crystal flute of champagne. He just walked through the main doors. My blood turned to absolute ice. Across the crowded room, flanked by two hulking, heavily armed bodyguards, was Harrison Cole. He looked exactly as my nightmares remembered him, sharp, viciously handsome, and reeking of the sickening metallic scent of burnt copper and stale blood. My deeply ingrained Omega instincts screamed at me to run, to drop to the floor and hide beneath the tables, but Dominic's arm felt like a solid wall of iron standing directly behind me. It did not take long for Harrison to notice the subtle disturbance rippling through the crowded room. His arrogant eyes swept the gathering, and then he froze entirely. His gaze locked directly onto my face. I watched in paralyzed horror as the color completely drained from his cheeks, replaced in a split second by a violent, purplish rage that contorted his features. He shoved his way violently through the wealthy crowd, deliberately knocking a tray of glasses out of a waiter's hands, marching straight toward our position with murder in his eyes. "You!" Harrison snarled gutturally, coming to a halt a mere 3 feet away, his chest heaving with exertion. His deranged eyes darted immediately to the fresh, vibrant bite mark displayed prominently on my neck, and a feral, unhinged growl ripped violently from his throat. "You little whore! You faked your own death. And you—" He turned his rabid, bloodshot glare toward Dominic. "You stole my rightful property." Dominic did not flinch. He did not even blink. He calmly handed his half-empty champagne flute to a passing attendant. "Good evening, Harrison. I believe you are gravely mistaken. Liam is my fiancé. And as for the concept of stolen property, I think the Federal Bureau of Investigation would be far more interested in discussing yours." Harrison lunged forward, his fists raised, but before he could even close the short distance, Dominic's true alpha aura exploded into the room. It was not just a heavy presence. It was a physical, concussive blow. The sheer, suffocating, crushing dominance of Dominic's pheromones slammed into the ballroom like a shock wave. Several delicate crystal glasses spontaneously shattered on the surrounding tables. Harrison stumbled backward violently, gasping and choking for air, clutching wildly at his own chest as his inferior alpha biology was violently and totally subjugated by a true, generational apex predator. "Did you honestly think this entire game was about a pathetic waterfront real estate development?" Dominic asked, his voice a lethal, echoing boom in the sudden, dead silence of the ballroom. I couldn't care less about those crumbling docks. This entire operation was about drawing you out of your hole and into the blinding light. Dominic casually snapped his fingers. Instantly, from the shadows of the grand pillars, 24 men in sleek black tactical suits stepped forward in perfect unison, golden badges flashing brilliantly under their lapels. Federal agents, heavily escorted and backed by Dominic's private Pinkerton security contractors, immediately surrounded the perimeter. "What the hell is this?" Harrison spat, falling to one knee as he desperately struggled against the overwhelming biological pressure forcing him to submit to Dominic. "This is the absolute end of the coal shipping empire," Dominic replied, his voice entirely cold and merciless. "Human trafficking, illegal underground Omega breeding rings, offshore embezzlement, and murder. The highly encrypted files you hid so carefully in your Cayman Islands accounts were actually quite easy to crack once my cyber team breached your main servers. You see, Harrison, my younger sister was a bonded Omega. She mysteriously disappeared on one of your private luxury yachts exactly 5 years ago. I spent half a decade building a global fortune for one single purpose: to buy enough absolute power to destroy you and everyone you love. The earth-shattering revelation hit me like a runaway freight train. This complex, terrifying scenario was never just about a petty corporate rivalry. Dominic had been systematically hunting Harrison for years, and I was the final, perfect piece of the puzzle to draw the monster out. "Arrest him, now," Dominic ordered flatly, as a screaming, thrashing Harrison was violently dragged in heavy iron cuffs from the glittering ballroom. Cursing my name and swearing bloody vengeance to the heavens, my trembling knees finally buckled entirely. The massive spike of adrenaline completely vanished, leaving me entirely empty and hollowed out. But I did not hit the marble floor. Dominic moved with blinding speed, catching me and effortlessly sweeping my exhausted body up into his strong, secure arms. The terrifying, cold, ruthless CEO was entirely gone. As he looked down at me, his piercing ice-blue eyes were incredibly soft, filled with a profound protective warmth that made the temporary mating bond in my neck throb with a vibrant, beautiful new life. "It is finally over, Liam," Dominic whispered gently, pressing his warm forehead against mine, his dark espresso scent wrapping completely around me like an impenetrable fortress. "He can never touch you again. You are safe now. Forever." I reached up slowly, my trembling fingers tightly clutching the silk lapel of his jacket. "You used me," I whispered weakly, though there was absolutely no anger or betrayal in my exhausted voice, only a profound sense of relief. "I protected you," he corrected softly, his lips brushing against my forehead. "And I am never, ever letting you go. We have a great deal to talk about, my brave little beta. But first, let's take you home." As he carried me securely out of the Waldorf Astoria, past the flashing cameras and the stunned crowd, I buried my face deeply into the crook of his neck, breathing in the rich scent of my incredible new beginning. The invisible ghost was finally dead. I was Liam Croft now, and against all conceivable odds, I was exactly where I was always meant to be. If you loved this intense Omegaverse drama full of shocking twists, ruthless CEOs, and satisfying revenge, hit that like button right now. Make sure to share this video with your fellow Boylove story addicts, and please subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on our thrilling fictional romances. Have a brilliant idea for our next epic story? Drop a comment below with your favorite alpha/omega trope. Your support helps us create more content. See you next time.